What does it really take to finance a war? Not just tanks and soldiers, but taxes. Welcome to Inside War Budgets by the Tax Professor Files. In this episode, we go inside how Ukraine and Russia are funding one of the most brutal wars in Europe and what it reveals about how modern conflicts are paid for. Let's start with Ukraine. Back in 2014, after Crimea was annexed, Ukraine introduced a 1.5% military levy on all personal income. It was meant to be temporary. This military tax is applied as a flat-rate deduction on salaries, separate from regular income tax, and together with VAT and other taxes, it helps fund drones, logistics, weapons, and soldiers' pay. Now let's move to Russia. In 2023, the Kremlin imposed a so-called one-time war tax on Russian companies and foreign companies operating in Russia, 10% on their excess profits, framed by the government as a voluntary contribution, but in reality, mandatory. And it wasn't just a so-called voluntary contribution. Foreign companies exiting Russia were hit with a de facto exit tax, forced to sell their assets at up to a 50% discount and pay up to 35% of the sale value directly to the Kremlin, all under the guise of regulatory approval. And here's where things get uncomfortable. Both countries continue to collect taxes to fund a war with no clear end in sight. And the longer the war continues, the more permanent these taxes may become. And history agrees. In ancient Greece, war was funded through a special levy on the wealthy imposed during times of conflict. In the UK, income tax was first introduced to fund the Napoleonic Wars, but never truly left. In Ukraine, that temporary military levy has lasted over 10 years. War taxes often start as emergency measures, but they tend to stick around silently absorbed into national tax codes. So even if the conflict ends, the war tax might not, but under a different name. And that raises a deeper question. If you as a taxpayer are paying for a war without voting for it or even supporting it, are you part of it? Because here's the truth. Taxes don't always build peace. Sometimes they defend. Sometimes they aggress. And sometimes they destroy. I'm the Tax Professor, and thank you for watching Inside War Budgets. Subscribe now, and don't just stay informed. Get inside.